There is, deep within each and every one of us, a voice, an intimate voice, discreet, often muffled by the tumult of the world, but always present. This voice, it's the voice from within, the one that whispers when everything is in turmoil, the one that knows the ways of peace, even when everything seems like chaos. The voice from within, it's a space of listening, a space for those who, everywhere on this earth, rise every day to heal, connect, rebuild. This podcast was born from a need, the need to make visible the invisible acts, to make heard the voices we forget to listen to tell the story of peace differently. Here, we hand the microphone to the artisans of life, mediators, community leaders, religious leaders, and engaged citizens. Their stories are made of persistent silences, of glances exchanged in the moment, of patient struggles, of providential choices. Rooted in often forgotten contexts, they carry within them a reality that concerns us all. This podcast is a suspended space where we put aside the noise of the world to better hear what vibrates in the other and in ourselves. A word born from within can shake the walls of silence. A resonating echo can rewrite an entire story. And in the unified beat of our voices, the world begins to heal. Welcome to the voice from within, a breath, a light, a voice. Welcome in this podcast, welcome in the voice from within. For this new episode, we head to Palestine, a land of resistance and memory, where the aspiration for freedom faces daily the harsh realities of occupation. From East Jerusalem to Gaza, checkpoints and demolitions shaped everyday life. Yet, at the heart of this struggle against injustice, another pain emerges: the internal divisions and systemic violence among Palestinians, fueled by fatigue, despair, and external pressures. Despite these fractures, hope endures in schools, in stories, and in acts of solidarity. Between oppression and internal tensions, the quest remains the same: to live upright, with dignity, rooted in the land, and reaching toward peace. So today, I have the honor, and I'm glad to welcome Zoughbi Zoughbi, a Palestinian peace activist and founder of the Center in Bethlehem. Since 1994, he has worked to transform conflict through dialogue, mediation, and education in non-violence. WIAM provides psychosocial support, leadership training, and care for children traumatized by violence. The center combines local conflict resolution traditions with restorative justice practices. Zoughbi also works against intracommunity violence and violence against women and children. He believes that human dignity can be restored, and even under the worst conditions. His work has earned him several international awards, including the World Vision Peace Prize. A recognized writer, trainer, and speaker, Zoughbi is internationally respected. For him, making peace means responding to suffering with hope. I just wanted to complete this presentation with a little quote from the great Mahmoud Darwish, a Palestinian poet and intellectual, who said, "Peace is not made between an occupier and the occupied, but between equals." Just a reminder of this podcast, of its purpose. It's to shed light on the peace that exists within each of us by giving a voice to those who work for peace around the world. Zoughbi, welcome in this episode. I'm very glad and honored to meet you. How do you feel this morning?
Thank you, Kilian. I am feeling good since I am surrounded by beloved community, transnational community. You in France, my colleague in the States, Tariq, and all the people. So this is, in a way, is a message of uplifting to me and to my community and to our center. When you feel that you are part of this extended community, you are not alone, and has a lot of psychological impacts and empowerment. Despite what is happening here, what is happening in Gaza, genocide, in the West Bank, slow genocide, and what is happening in the whole Middle East and the world, where violence is in every corner. I think through our communication and through our dialogue, through showing that we care for each other, as John Donne says, no man, no woman is an island. If a cloth is washed away, Europe is the less. And the whole world is the less with all of these conflicts in Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel, Sudan, Pakistan, and India. So in a way or another, we are globally affected by each other. So I am uplifted to hear you, because you have choices and you decide to come and to be in solidarity with us. Your compassion and empathy, help us to go in the less traveled road for justice, for nonviolence, for peace, and for resilience.
How did you find your path in the peace building until this very inner conviction you just shared with us?
I think it started, I was an orphan. My father died when I was 6 years old, and my younger sister was 3 months old. So I had a very compassionate mother who taught me nonviolence, who taught me how to be caring for others, how to be in empathy and in compassion to others who are less fortunate. So since I was a child, I started to work and to volunteer and to find ways how to help others in this society. So it was a turning point in my life when I was 13 years old, when I was going to Jerusalem, and the soldiers say, "What are you doing? Give me your ID." And I say, "I am a child, I don't have an ID." So it was really the moment where I was awakened that I am Palestinian, I am Arab, and I have a cause to start with. So since then, I was activist in the student movement. I was activist in student government at the university and in the peace work since then. And then I have the walk and the talk. I completed, or I studied more at the university level, but I was a practitioner and have been a practitioner more and more. And with the people that I see here and there, I learn from them. As we say, the good student is who is always studying, a good trainer who is always in training. So, I owe my knowledge to different heroes in my life here and there, and learning from them, from different experience, from the conflicts all over the world, how to learn from them, and how to learn from Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Bishop Kamara, Brazil, Khan from Pakistan, and different guys here and there. And I decided, since I was awake, that I'm a Palestinian, that I should go on with this struggle. And by the way, Tariq is to my left. He's my son. He'd like to add.
Yeah, and I think to add just a few words to what was shared, in the placement that we find ourselves, we find how vast and beautiful and rich the world is, and we welcome that richness in. Whether it is from the wandering stranger who comes to our door, or to the colloquial story that we hear in the bar, in the house, in the church, in the mosque, in the school, we welcome this richness from all sources. and that richness continues to feed us, continues to expand our awareness and our understanding, and continues to give us the motivation necessary to continue with this work, believing in, despite all the histories written, all the histories suffered, the reality suffered today that will be written in the future, we continue to believe there is another way, and that way is through community building, through building this resiliency, through deconstructing the systems of oppression and building systems of justice that lift up the human instead of push them down, and lift up life, even that which does not speak in the same way that we do.
Would you agree to share with us some key early moments related to obstacles and situations you met, and at the final stage you found innovative solutions that allowed you to overcome these situations and to learn about the work of peace?
Yes, I think all of our life is a series of challenges, obstacles, and difficulties. Since I was born, in 1963, 4 years later, I faced the occupation. And my elderly talk about the Nakba, the catastrophe in 1948. So I have never thought of a moment that we are really looking for a better life. We are walking this road of pain and sorrow. And now we have lots of obstacles. I'm talking with you, as you remember, we are at the bottom of the wall, We are really watched 24 hours in a way or another. And, tear gas, live ammunition, sonic bombs, all of that were mounted in the street that we are on. So these are the challenges. The occupation is the most challenging thing. And when we talk about the occupation, we are not against Jews or any faith community. We are against the system which is oppressive, the system which is demoralizing not only the Palestinians, but also all faith communities, and mainly our brethren and sisterhood, the Jews, in a way or another. But at the same time, we see some people in Jewish circles protesting. They say, not in my name. And I hope this will be all over, not only in US and UK, but also next to us in the Israeli community, more and more. And also other difficulties now, people are in bad shape economically, I think in Bethlehem area, for example, around 75% is the unemployment, and 35% of the families are live in poverty line. And how can you continue with your peace work when people are dying to have food on the table? So this is a big challenge. Jerusalem is the twin of Bethlehem, and for the first time in history, Jerusalem is separated. We cannot go to Jerusalem. It is easier for me to sleep overnight in Paris or in the States anywhere, but it is not easy to have a permit to go to Jerusalem. As a Muslim, as a Christian, as a human being, this is the challenge.
And maybe I would add, one of the key components of this work is this transformation piece. We're not just talking about conflict mediation, but instead the deconstruction of conflict and the perception of it as an opportunity to build. Sometimes when there are relations that are limited or that have become jaded by time or jaded by the difficulties of life, this conflict presents a new opportunity to forge new beginnings or forge stronger belongings to each other. And so we see it is always a good time to be inspired. A conflict between a family becomes an opportunity to transform that family from within into peacemakers. And I think we can recall many conflicts and many conflict transformations where we see both those in the role of the aggressor, such as in the case of domestic violence, and those in the role of the victim, those who have had the hurt, the suffering, and the violence of this domestic violence perpetuated against them directly, being both transformed into agentic community members who are now part of our civil and social peace movements, our justice building. And so we also see it in some of the community members that we serve. We have one child from our children's group who was a child prisoner. He was taken by the Israeli authorities. He was held without the right to know what he's being convicted of, the crime, without the right to a lawyer, to legal aid, and with the assertion and assumption that we are guilty until proven innocent, instead of the opposite. And in that situation was held for a few months, being abused psychologically, physically, and denied his freedoms. And one day we had him here in the center. We've been working with him on coping mechanism. We've been working on some of this trauma that he's accumulated in this. And we had a visiting delegation. And someone from the delegation asked this young man, if you could, what would you do to the soldiers that abused you? And here we are in the position of translating for this child with his parents' presence. And we tell him, you don't have to answer. This is a very charged question. It's a very bad question. It's a question that is blind to the suffering of this child and wanting to place this child in a position of power that he does not have, to try and look at the integrity or morality of this child in despite what this child has been through. And so we translate this question to the child and we explain, you do not have to answer. But then he decides he wants to, and he says, why would you ask me this when I know what this suffering looks like? Instead, ask me what I want to be. And I will tell you I want to be an Arabic teacher, because I wish to teach other children to hold pride and take pride in the culture that they come from and the language that they speak. And so we see it doesn't matter how young they are. There are people full of inspiring power that are willing to share the love that they have for themselves, for life, and for their community with us, and also to transform every conversation that they find themselves in.
You know, also, as Tariq said, the conflict is not only challenging the occupation. As a result of the socio-economic, political deteriorating situation, we become like a pressure cooker situation. We live in a pressure cooker situation. More domestic violence, more conflict as a result of that. So we mediate conflicts. Two families, two groups, two husband and wife. And so they came to us and to ask, for help, each one. So when we have the shuttle diplomacy, we try to humanize each side, the mother and the father, as you know, because whenever you have conflict, either you are historical or hysterical. So we decided to go on. We started with meeting with the father and then the mother and the children. And through shuttle diplomacy, we humanized each other. And they were really at odds with each other to a point that, there are groups here, groups there, family here, family there, would like to enter in a real conflict. So we look at conflict as an opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. So after we have psychosocial support and lots of meetings, the father and the mother became part of our work. The father became part of our mediators, and the mother became very active in the women program and gender issues. And the children were part of our children program. So some of them were able to volunteer for summer camps and other things, as well as some are already abroad continuing their education.
Your points leads me to ask you about the concept of sumud. Would you agree to describe it?
Yes.
So, of course, sumud is an Arabic word that is translated more loosely sometimes to resistance and resilience.
And steadfastness.
Steadfastness, exactly. And so sumud is what we practice in the face of forces that are oftentimes beyond our control and unfortunately empowered by forces beyond our borders and beyond the binational borders of Palestine and Israel, by international stakeholders and players who are complicit in the systems of oppression. Sumud becomes our greatest tool of resistance. In the wake of the wall that locks us into our territories, in the wake of the destructive bombs that are produced all over the world, including in Israel, that rain down on our people, especially in Gaza, resistance, resilience, steadfastness, all leading to the existence and continued existence of the Palestinian people and its communities, becomes our strongest and most accessible form of nonviolent creative resistance against systems filled with violence.
Yes. Sumud is telling us about our inner strength facing all the atrocities, the difficulties. It's telling us that we need to be together, diversity in unity, to be in a pluralistic society rather than to be one color, one religion, one political party. So it is really open our eyes that we should celebrate differences and continue to strengthen our presence in the land, and also our hopes to be unified ambitions that we are struggling for in non-violent approach, and also help us to relate to the world, steadfastness. How to relate to the world through the culture of acceptance. I accept you as you are. I accept David as he is. I accept everyone. So Sumud is telling us there is no way that you can continue in this life without really respecting all the differences and celebrating it.
How does your faith help you in the path of peace building? And do you have some spiritual practice or any other daily practices that help you to continue your involvement in the peace building?
To be frank with you, I cannot live without faith, and I cannot continue this less traveled road of non-violence without hope. And we work with Muslims and Christians, and we are for spirituality more than religiosity. Spirituality is more inclusive. We are including others who are different in their religion. Some people might be agnostic or atheist, but together we work and in a way of respect. So faith, would like to say, enhances our approach, help us to say yes on the level of struggling against the power to be. Yes, we have even more power to depend on God's power. And God is inclusive. It's not the God of Jews or God of Muslims or God of Christians. He is God of every religion. And we say, yes, we are created in the image of God. And so that every human being should be respected and should be dealt in a way or another to satisfy his need. So faith really gathers us rather than separate us, and we together, Muslims and Christians, fight against racism, against any kind that divide us.
And I would add that there's also a very important faith that goes beyond religion, beyond spirituality, beyond scripture, into that which gathers us. We have faith in the good nature of our communities, of the people within them. It is difficulties, it is sometimes greed and grievances that may lead us astray, but we find time and time again in conflict that when we have the opportunity and that when we are able to afford that opportunity for those around us, that there is this generous spirit of belonging, which we all share, which brings us together. And so our faith is not just in the powers that sometimes we do not explicitly or directly see, but also in the communities that shape us and bring us together. We can be in these conflicts with people who wish for the blood of the other person, of the other group, and they are very holding onto that vengeance-seeking activity. And then when they are gathered in the same room and the other group recognizes the ill, the harm that they have committed against the first, we also see that anger, that hatred, that revenge-seeking melt away. And we see this forgiveness and generosity emerging. And so we don't only believe that we are capable of good because we have been created in this goodness, but also because we see this goodness find its way even in the darkest of times and in these very difficult hardships. We see these communities coming together to meet the needs of each other, and we could not survive without our neighbors, regardless of how many miles away they may be from our home.
And faith, in a way or another, strengthens us and forces our approach of transformation, how to transform the use of religion and the practice of religious leaders from being a source of conflict, some of them, not all of them, to a source for peace building, for interfaith dialogue, for agape, unconditional love. And this is where the real faith for all people who believe in one God.
Did you observe through the years, from the beginning of your involvement in the peace building, did you observe some shifts concerning the situation, the tension between peace and conflicts, the impact of on the collective mental health? Did you observe some shifts through the years?
I hope to see more positive shifts. We see deterioration in the psychological standard, the psychological situation of our people. We are all traumatized, and we have at least 4 types of trauma. The collective trauma, not only 1948, but what is happening now in Gaza and ever. And we have the personal trauma, that each one. And then we have the intergenerational trauma. We have trauma from past colonial powers, And we have also the trauma, displaced trauma on each other, So the psychological situation is deteriorating. More people are suffering. I believe, it is sad to say that in order to be healed from trauma, it takes 7 generations after the conflict or the oppression stopped. Imagine that we're still in the suffering. Takes 7 generations, across 30 years or 25 years, will be around 200 years. If this aggression from the power to be on us stopped, we need at least 200 years. What generations will be steadfast to see that? So these are the things that we face. 1/3 of the male population have been in prison. At least 20,000 women have been in prison. Look what is happening in Gaza itself. How many families where no more members of the family live. They are removed, they are erased from the civil records. This is the first time in history I see such terrible situation facing our people and the silence of the world. And the axis of evil are stronger than the axis of good-natured people and good-natured communities. So I see these parts.
Yeah, and I would also add, of course, when we talk about the silence of the world, we're talking about the world that has power to directly influence the situation. We're talking about the EU that is hesitant to arrest those who would commit these atrocities. We talk about the United States and Canada, which still have these deals with this government and regime. But I think to your earlier question about peace and how that has changed, during the Oslo days, there was great hope. For marginalized communities, when we hear peace and the way we operate, we connect it directly to justice. For these colonial powers and for the powers that wish to keep their systems in place, peace means the absence of active resistance against them, to solidify the powers and the structures of oppression that they have in place. And so what we also have seen in these peace movements on the Palestinian side is a movement away from the terminology of peace that can be inferred and perceived as the perceiver desires it to be, towards justice building, towards the building of a positive peace that is based in equity and equality, that is based in the recognition of these histories of suffering, of these horizontal inequalities, and the destruction of the structural barriers which keep us separated and divided and keep us in the forced position of oppressed and occupied and keep our oppressor in the dominant power. And so we see the shift collectively where peace has become a dirty word. You hear someone saying that they have a peace program and you have to question what it means. And as he was saying, as it relates to the mental stability, we are in a consistent state of fear, anxiety, and paranoia. When a soldier invades our communities in the middle of the night, we are powerless. We can stay at home, we cannot call the local police, we cannot call international agencies, but to witness. There is nobody that we can call, international or otherwise, that can have active and direct action in that moment and in that situation. And so this is where our greatest remedy to this instability and insecurity is to find some comfort in suffering together, in sumud together, and in belonging together, in strengthening the ties. Every day we receive phone calls. Sometimes people who are most in need do not have the means to contact us themselves. So a neighbor calls us and they say, this neighbor hasn't had a job, they have some medical issues, we haven't seen them leave their house, we know that they're out of food. Can you please send someone to go and check up on them? And in that way, instead of going ourselves, we take friends with us. And we make sure that we have friends who come from each different part of the world, from the medical world, from the trauma and psychosocial support world, from the conflict mediation world. And then we're able to try and address the needs creatively, because the resources are dwindling and the resources that we currently have do not allow us to adequately meet the needs of the masses or, on the local level, our own communities. So we try and stretch them as much as we are able to, and in that stretching, stretch them enough to gather and capture enough or as much as the needs as we are able to.
Is there a particular thing you'd like us in the West to notice, something you want us to hear, and something we usually ignore or don't identify as something crucial concerning the situation, like a missing information when we are talking about the situation in Israel and Palestine here in France, for instance?
I think if I may start, a very important thing that we must remember is that no one deserves occupation or genocide. Because I think if we look at the world media, they are always ready to point out the quote-unquote deficiencies as they view them in the Palestinian people, as if there is any level of deficiency or violence that we ourselves could commit that would ever justify the violence of occupation and genocide that is being committed to us. And so to remind our brothers, sisters, and siblings in the West that we too belong to each other, that we too are human, that we too have stories, we have aspirations, and just like the West, we also have the ability to transform. And the transformation that we are in need of is a transformation from occupied to free. And that transformation requires, unfortunately, it requires the West's intervention in not being involved in this conflict through funding and through giving and through trade of these weapons of mass destruction or these sentiments which allow for this destructive power and policies to continue.
And I will say, if the people, the governments in the West will not be part of the solution, at least we advise them not to be part of the problem. By closing their eyes, by having support in military, in taxes to the oppressors, and also to say, we are part of this human family, global family. Why should be treated differently? The Palestinians are entitled to self-determination and statehood. They are entitled to live in dignity, to live in coexistence with others. And also, it is the time to erase the prefixes for Palestinians that we are terrorists or extremists or fundamentalists. It is time to see us as a human being, especially if all of us believe that we are all created in the image of God. Why this distortion and demonization continue to be? Why this distortion and demonization continue to be?
Does the concept peace, hold a unique meaning in your native language? And what does it mean in Arabic, I presume?
Peace means salam. And of course, as my colleague Tariq said, it is becoming a distorted image and a distorted word. Because, every state talks about peace, but most of the states violate the basis of peace. For us, there will be peace of mind, peace of heart, coexistence. We interfaith, being under one community, multi-faith, multi-nations. And also, if you want peace, let us have justice. There will be no peace without justice.
And I think also when we talk about the word peace in Arabic, salam, and how it is used in the Arab context, or I should say the Palestinian context, recognizing the diversity of Arab contexts, it also has this understanding of well-being, something tangible in what peace means. When we talk about it, it's also a greeting, assalamu alaikum, salamat. So it goes beyond this almost static understanding as the absence of violence, which is maybe a negative definition, to a positive definition, one that is full and one that is rich. It's about this we-am. It's about this harmony, this agape, this
unconditional love.
This unconditional love that is transformative and that unites us. So salam for us is not static in the absence of violence, but instead it's the presence of well-being and ways of being that allow us to honor ourselves, our community, and our ways of life.
Is there a current project you're leading and you want to share with us and maybe collect some funds for people who will listen to you?
We are in the summer vacation in 1 month. So we need to have summer camp for children and youth activities also. The need is immense. We need to have people to find jobs, job creation, also, because, no one is allowed to go to Jerusalem except very few. And of course, we need empowerment of women.
Yeah, I would say maybe one of the biggest projects that is coming up that we are struggling to solidify at the moment is the children's summer camp. Every year we gather children for a period of weeks that is determined by our creativity and the funding that we have available. Part of this children's summer camp is we work with social workers, with psychologists, with therapists to have some trauma coping mechanisms. We work on providing safe spaces for these children to live, to play. We use the arts to allow for freedom of expression. We use theater, we use debka, the Palestinian folklore dance. We use the arts as a medium to allow these children to welcome us into their lives and also to allow them to express to us what they may be saying, what is salient to them. And the other part of this is we also try and provide them with excursions, going to museums, going to a park, going to a water park when we are able to, and providing them with breakfast and lunch. Some of these children come from very impoverished families. Some of them come from middle-class families. And so we don't wish to see those who are impoverished needing to be fed alone, because that can create distinction, that can create division. So we provide something for all children within this space. And so at the moment, we are struggling to find the funding and the financing that we need to allow us to say for how long we will be working. We're hoping that if the funds do come through, that towards the end of June, we'll be able to start this children's summer camp and have it for at least 6 weeks. But we're still in the process of gathering the funds for it.
Thank you very much for all those key teachings concerning the situation here in Palestine, as well as concerning the role of the peace building, what is peace and what peace is not as well. Thank you very much. Thank you also for all this information you shared with us concerning mediation, conflict resolution, and all those new concepts, at least for people who don't know at all about peace, because peace is usually let's say controlled by mass medias here in the West, so it's very difficult for people to know about this field of work, this field of study. So thank you very much again. I was very honored to listen to you and to learn more about your work. And we'll meet for another episode of the Voice from Within soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Power to you.